themselves. They can use VoiceThread to communicating with others, a collaborative exchange between two students or more than two. And so that's how it's changed. I've introduced them, not so much do we use it in class, but they are aware of these particular tools. And I know most people know that students usually know more than we do about tools, especially technology, but they really don't. They use it for different purposes. The educational tools, which I consider Padlet, and VoiceThread, they haven't even used those, a lot of them. So that's now I'm being told that there's a colleague who uses podcasts, so I'm going to have to start. Um, I'll have to speak with that professor and see how she uses it in her classes. That's something that would be of value for language teachers, especially oral communication.
What has been most rewarding about the way that your teaching has changed since you joined the Step Up program?
I think the use of the cell phone in class. It was forbidden in my classes because they were a distraction. But wow, what a benefit, because I find I have more time to, well, interact with them and they with others, because I am not spending time with this question. ¿Cómo se dice? I mean, how do you say this or that or whatever? And it interrupts the flow. They know not to ask me. They have a phone. Look it up on their diccionarios. Just open up to your app, Spanish dictionary, and you have the answer yourself. So they have learned to be independent and, in a sense, learners that learn for, well, the tool, the use of the tool, and to learn whatever it is that they are seeking on their own. They don't need me to tell them what the word is. Look it up. And so I think that's rewarding, because I learned that at the Institute. They are called, what's it called? We were told by Tanner, a Google jockey. No, that's who it. And have one, but I don't. I have all of my students doing it. I don't have one person looking it up. So if they have a question about in civilization, well, who is that? Oh, it was in your textbook, but hey, just Google the name right now. Oh, it saves so much time, and then they learn because they did it.
What has been the most challenging about how your teaching has changed?
Using different digital tools. There's so much, George. I really have not had the time with my schedule and duties as the director, um, and other things now, to sit down and learn all of these different tools. So that's challenging to me. There's so much there, and some are very rewarding tools, and also tools that improve learning. I just haven't had the time to sit down and learn how to use them.
How have your students reacted to the way that your teaching has changed?
I think because more and more professors are allowing cell phone usage, um, they like it. It's nothing new anymore. Now, the only thing is that they do get irritated if I say, put them away. And I only say put them away when I walk around, and I'm always walking around, and they are using them for texting. And I said, if that's not a text in Spanish, you need to put it away. So they like it, and yet when I don't allow it, you can see that they get irritated.
Tasha Thomas introduced me to a phrase that she uses in the classroom called courtesy mode.
Okay.
Where she says, okay, now let's all put our devices into courtesy mode. And she identifies that at the beginning of the semester about what to call it, so that it's clear. I think that this is what I was talking about before, about how, the the stuff that I learned from Tasha is so valuable that that's one of them is to say, you just have a phrase. You don't have to say something like, all right, put your phones away. It's
Okay.
not that. It's
Courtesy mode.
yeah, and
Okay.
built into that is the idea of why do you put the phone away or why do you put the laptop away? It's because, we have defined in this classroom that how you pay attention is more than, that involves body language and facial expressions and stuff. And if you're staring at your phone, that's, that makes whether you're paying attention or not, it makes the speaker think you're not paying attention. And so, and the speaker could be a fellow student, it could be a guest in the class, or it could be the professor. So I like that a lot. But I've had that same experience when telling students to put things away.
Wow. I think I'll sit in on one of her classes and I'll look at her. Is it on the SharePoint? Her
Should
syllabus, and I can see how she defines courtesy mode.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I think that we've answered question 7, but if you have more to say, I'll go ahead and ask it. What are the most significant effects that you've seen resulting from teaching and learning in a digital environment?
I think they have become more self-directed with the use of technology, doing it themselves and not having me to do it. That's me, a positive.
That's huge.
Yes.
How do you keep up with new developments in technology?
I don't. No, it's difficult. It's probably only in the summer that I can do it after having attended a big conference, teaching professor conference, because it's there and you're energized after going to all of these different sessions and listening to the panelists and the presenters, and you say, wow, when I get back, I'm going to try it and see. But then your time, it's another problem. So it's time. Lack of time has kept me away. But whenever I go to a conference like ours, we have in May, the STEP of Technology Conference or Symposium, that's a way of keeping up.
We might have already gotten to gotten to the answer of question 9, but if you have more to say, I'll go ahead and ask it anyway. After the implementation of the Bring Your Own Device program, which was a few years ago now, have you noticed any difference in the number of students who bring their own devices and how they use them?
They all bring them. How they use them, I've only had, I don't really have to say courtesy mode to perhaps about 2 students out of 15 or 20 in a class. But no, I don't see any major differences except for the fact that they like having them. They themselves realize that it's very useful to be able to look it up themselves. And they see the time is not taken away from them when I can guide their learning with my looking it up or my telling them or my explaining it. They can use their devices.
What kinds of devices do you use while you're teaching?
I hate to say it, but it's only the computer. That's it. Once in a while, that's not a device, though. So we talked earlier about I need to get a light computer because I have that MacBook Pro, very heavy, and I also mentioned to you that I really have not utilized my iPad to the extent that I should. So I'm going to have to take time and see what I can do with it. And you said that Tasha uses hers quite often, so again, I need to.
I don't know. I don't know that everybody needs to, like you said, that you don't use the iPad the way that you should. I don't know that there's a should. I think that everybody's going to find the tools that work best for them. There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
But at least you can walk around. See, now, I've always walked around. I don't like standing in front. I never lecture.
Yep.
And so you can. And you're...
A lighter laptop allows you to do that. A tablet allows you to do that.
A tablet, yes. So that's if I used them better, those two, if I had a lighter laptop, if I would just use that iPad, I think that would help. I just need to do it. I just find myself going back to that computer at the front of the class.
Yeah. It does seem like we had a big change, or many people, like in higher ed, there was a big change that took place in pedagogy, maybe as early as the 60s, but through the 70s into the 80s, the concept of decentering the classroom. That you don't have the sage on the stage, to use that phrase, at the front of the room who stands there declaiming truth that everybody just absorbs. But then once technology got reintroduced, the physical space of the classroom reinscribed that very situation. There's a podium at the front that just sits there.
That is so
And if
true.
you're going to do something that's displaying, you have to stand there.
So are we getting more active classrooms? Because I've been over to the library, 238. Wonderful.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, we have this now. The Step Up 2 is what the name of the active learning program.
Step Up 2.
That's why the hashtag is hashtag SU2UP. Step Up 2 Upstate.
That's what it is.
I think that's right. But
okay.
so yeah, there is going to be the plan is that as part of that grant funded initiative, let me make sure I have that hashtag right.
I've used it. SUP.
It's hashtag SU the numeral 2 SUP.
Okay. All right.
I've got good news for you. 218 in HPAC is going to be an active learning classroom.
And you have been told?
Peter told me yesterday.
Oh, good.
So we're going to have this, very different kind of space. 218 is going to be turned into a very different kind of space.
I asked that 238 here be, but that would have been through academic affairs, so
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, two things that it just, every year in the fall, right as the semester is getting going and faculty are like getting their syllabi finished and we've got our first meetings and stuff, they always send out this call for proposals for funding for, I forget what the name of it is, but it's like if you need new furniture in a classroom, that's it.
Yeah, innovation.
So that's one way to get a classroom sort of refurnitured. But then in the spring are the technology requests. So it's taken me, this is my 10th year here at USC Upstate. It's taken me this long to realize, so in the fall,
it's the furniture.
Yeah, have this long-term, have a 2-year plan, so that in the fall you request, we need some different kinds of desks. These 30-year-old desks, while they're sturdy, are not facilitating the kind of pedagogy that so many of us want to do.
They're not facilitating the people who have to sit and
Yes.
sad.
Yeah.
That was discussed.
And then in the spring, think about, okay, I'd like an interactive whiteboard like the kind in the classroom. So
So that's considered, the interactive whiteboard.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Because we have one now in, let me think, over in, I think it's 233. I think you've taught in 233 before, or maybe you still do, over in HPAC.
Years ago.
It now has an interactive whiteboard,
really?
like the one in 238.
Wow.
But all that does is change one element of that classroom. And the podium got upgraded. So I applied for a technology, I don't even teach in the classroom, but I applied for a technology upgrade for that classroom last spring, 233 in HPAC.
And so what did you get?
Well, I asked for an interactive whiteboard, and what's the office? Media Services, I think it is. I'm not sure it's Robert.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
And they said, well, if you're going to have if you're going to have the interactive whiteboard, the podium needs to be updated because the podium is several years old now. And so when I submit, and they gave me a budget for the whole thing, which was a lot. And when I submitted it to the technology committee, I said, now keep in mind, a big part of this is the podium upgrade, which Media Services tells me we're due for anyway. I said, so it might be that you think this is not the appropriate use of technology money. This technology. I said, if that is the case, please tell me where I can get money to do this. And they went ahead and they funded the interactive whiteboard, and then they through the technology fund, but they funded the new podium through something else. And I don't know the ins and outs of how all that works.
because I had requested 360 Echo and for that classroom 238, and it went through Robert.
Yeah.
They got it in there. So,
Yeah. So,
but I haven't heard. I doubt if it's. I was told not to go through LLC, through CAS for 238.
over here in the media building.
Yeah, but even though CAS professors use this room more than anyone, I mean, and all on Monday through Friday. However, he felt that since we, also the center, we use it for workshops, meaning dirt, that perhaps I should send it through academic affairs. I haven't heard anything, so it may not have been approved.
Yeah.
I went over to media, not media, the library, 238. Wow. For a language course, ideal.
Yeah. I
well,
really.
For any course, it's just collaborative learning, cooperative learning. It's just.
Yeah. People come to, you're going to come to, students, you're going to come to class and you're going to do stuff. You're not going to come to class and just sit there and listen to somebody.
Exactly. Even though now, I mean, I've always used it because we have 3 modes of communication in languages, and it really, using cooperative or whichever one you want to term it, or collaborative learning, has really worked. Although it does not work, George, for an introvert.
Yes, yes.
Active classrooms are the worst for them. I heard a wonderful professor this summer at a conference, and that's the first thing she says, all of you extroverts out there, please keep your hands down. The introverts have a chance. And she just went through a wonderful slide presentation on the best classrooms, and it was not active because you're sitting, with all these students doing a lot, and then you're the introvert. You can't. It's just something that you cannot make yourself do, and so they feel more comfortable in a lecture classroom because they're sitting there and they don't have to say anything. But then she also made us look at the fact that in classes where class participation in such a class, it's a lot as far as their grade distribution. A lot of people, especially in languages, we give at least, I do, at least over from 20 to 30% in your participation. So for an introvert and learning a language anyway, a lot of people feel inhibited. They are very timid about speaking the language,
making mistakes, sounding foolish.
Which, for years now, at least 15, people should have changed that as a teacher, is that you don't take time to correct anyone in class, because it does do that. For many, they don't want to commit an error in front of others. Sound Southern or Northern or whatever they want to speak like a native speaker. So they don't say anything. And so she let us know that it has, for a language, that's one thing, but for a person who's an introvert, they just don't want to speak. So she says, have you ever considered changing that grade percentage distribution? Why make them do 20 to 30%? Let them decide, maybe instead of 20%, there's another way of, I guess you could say, assessing their participation. And so I use other means that were given at that particular conference as to how to assess their participation. Having them one-on-one with me, a lot of writing is participating. So takeaways. So everyone has to fill out a little sheet. What did you take away from this class today? What was the muddy area or the most? Things like that. And so that's participating. I learned to, I can tell who's timid. So I always say, if you want the distribution from 20% to 15 or 10, and then you want more in your writing, let's do that. Whatever makes it makes you more comfortable.
That makes a lot of sense.
It did. I had never heard of changing the distribution,
allowing the student to customize.
The distribution of the grade. That makes for their success.
That's really smart. That gives me a lot to think about my
Yeah,
own teaching.
it really, and the students are saying, what? And another thing is, have you ever heard of, what's her name? Dweck? Her last name is Dweck. First name, I can't remember. Carol, I think. Yeah. Oh my God. Her whole thing is not yet. What we always emphasize is mastering something. Well, really, no one has mastered English. How can we expect anyone to master another language, not their native tongue yet? And 101, 102. I mean, it's amazing that people really think they come and their expectations are to be fluent after 201 or 202 in a language, or 301 or 3. And so her whole thing is she learned that it's good to put on their papers not yet, not yet. Give them a chance, an opportunity to improve. And then you have to limit the amount of improvements because the semester will be over if
Yeah.
they're constantly trying to improve that one composition. So I, for the last 4 years, have allowed my students, I call it the Carter Redemption instead of Shawshank. Anyway, for them to revise their compositions. You can revise them as many times as you'd like. You come in and you sit down with me. You listen to my feedback, but you have to come to my office for my feedback. And they, really? We can redo this? Are you going to average the grade? I said, no. You're redoing it. You're revising it. I'm going to grade that one. If you want to stop at that particular grade, that's the grade you're going to get. But because writing is a process, it's not the product. They're concentrating on that product from the beginning, but it is a process. There are different steps, and that's I've learned that in the last 5 years.
I think I've tried to move towards that kind of pedagogy also. I think that more accurately reflects the world beyond the college campus. When you're engaged in writing for a specific project, when you turn something in, like you hit the deadline and you submit it for publication, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're done, because they might say, we really like it's the whole revise and resubmit in a peer review process. Yeah,
we do it all the time.
Exactly.
Why
But even
don't
outside,
we let our students do it?
even outside of academia, if you become a writer who's writing for a travel magazine or for a website or something, it's going to happen that way too.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's right. Revise, resubmit. Why can't we do that?
Right.
We want them to learn.
Challenge might be the commitment of time that can sometimes require on the part of the professor. That our time is limited, obviously. So, are there ways? So you've spoken very eloquently about like sort of introverts and about the writing as a process. Are there ways in which these new technologies that we're encountering have facilitated those aspects of your pedagogy?
I am now beginning to use Padlet because I think that will help their writing. They can just put something up there. I mean, I haven't. Next semester I will, because it will be advanced language 2, so it will be 314. Hopefully they will have learned. Um, I guess that whole process of writing better, so that in 314 they can use Padlet. And there's another one that Tasha uses, but it's for writing and annotating.
Kaizena with Google Docs?
Google Docs.
Okay.
Yes, that's what. But I thought it was with a D that she uses a lot. And the students, it almost sounds.
It doesn't. I guess the tool, like the specific tool, doesn't matter so much.
No,
as like what it allows you to do. So what is it that she describes with using this tool?
They read something or write something and then they annotate it. Maybe it was that. I went over to her active learning presentation. What was the name of it?
So I know that there's one called Kaizena, which is a plug. It's not a plug-in. It's a service that you can use with Google Docs, so that all the students upload.
I know it's Google Docs because you can edit.
Yeah.
You just give them. Now,
Kaizena adds additional features that Google Docs doesn't have built in.
I'll have to.
And she does peer review that way now.
Oh.
And the students give fairly detailed feedback to each other, and then she meets. This is my understanding. So you're getting it secondhand by now.
Right.
That she has students upload their drafts to Google Docs, and then
Students.
they're assigned, like, you review these, and the students use the Kaizena interface for giving each other feedback. And then she can go and look at the student feedback and say, yes, you should listen to this, or, like, I want to emphasize this. Then the students come meet with her one-on-one for a brief consult where they they look at it in Kaizena. And my office is right across from her, so I overhear these workshops. I overhear these consults.
Okay.
She says, take out something to write with, and then they go over the feedback they've received from fellow students, and she goes, now this, do you understand what this means? Here are some ideas. You look at this. This is important. And what she has said to me, and again, it's the second hand, so get it from her first to make sure that I haven't, gotten anything wrong. Or maybe what she said in what I remember from her presentations is that it really cuts down on the amount of time she has to spend giving them the feedback that goes along with their grade. Because they've already gotten so much feedback about what's working and what's not working that by the time it's time for her to say, okay, here's the grade that you've earned, she doesn't have to put in a ton of information because they've already gotten a ton of information from fellow students and from her in this face-to-face. Yeah. So I think that might be what you were remembering about. Yeah.
That was last spring. And some of her students were there, yeah. Okay.
I'm going to jump to question 12 just because I think it's a good follow-up to what we've been talking about so far. So thinking ahead, like, how do you see Step Up and Bring Your Own Device initiative affecting the way that teaching and learning take place in your classrooms?
I see them helping me use more technology, and I think just from what I have been using, I can see students learning. So I am going to have to meet with people like Tasha, especially for writing. And it just occurred to me, of course she knows all of this. She's the director of what? The
Spartanburg Writing Project. Yep.
That's the person I need to speak with, because that is problematic at least in my world language that I'm teaching. Not just from Americans, but even from native speakers. Their writing skills. So I see the fact that we have people like Tasha and others that can assist me in improving my teaching and hence the learning. Well, in fact, I'm learning too, but they're learning, especially the peer. That really sounds very attractive. Peer review, because now I'm getting more and more, George, native speakers. So all of my little groups in my cooperative learning groups, even if they haven't chosen, I have them choose numbers because I don't want them working with their friends all the time. A diverse classroom needs to be inclusive, so you need to learn how to work with Johnny, Juan, Tamika.
Absolutely.
And so, but I make sure that there is a native speaker in each group. And this semester, I have 4. So 4 groups. It works out perfectly. I'll say, well, I'm sorry you chose both of you in this group. You'll have to go to that group because they're lacking a native speaker. So the native speaker helps, and we reward the native speaker finally with their knowledge. And some native speakers have problems with writing as well, the accent marks, etc. So they are also assisted by non-native speakers because they have been taught all of that grammar. It's
the same way that I've often encountered people where English is their second language, that they have a more precise and proper way of speaking English than many of us who are native speakers of English do, because they've learned the rules formally. We've sort of absorbed by osmosis some of the sort of variations on things.
Yeah. That's when I teach them, it's language acquisition. There's a difference in acquisition and learning. So the native speaker has acquired it like we do English from birth, and yet they have not, some of them, had formal training in the grammar. So we end up helping one another.
Yeah, that sounds great. Is there anything
Did I answer that?
I think so.
Okay.
I think that was fine. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would want to expand on?
No, I don't. I think we've had a wonderful conversation.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much for taking the time to talk to me.
And thanks for talking with me and giving me some tips.